Holy smokes, Vivek Ramaswamy's team just responded to allegations that I made against him that he orchestrated a pump and dump scheme and robbed billions of dollars from people. And their response is completely shocking. Now, I want to be very clear. I plan to make videos on other candidates as well. I started with Vivek because he did a Spaces with Elon Musk, which I covered. He said he was a biotech entrepreneur, which I researched. And when I started looking into some of the history, I was blown away, and not in a good way. So yesterday, I made a video where I discussed my findings. I discussed what I believe could be a fraudulent history for Vivek. Now, look. It's very common in the pharmaceutical world to make wild claims for drugs that end up failing. But I believe what Vivek did took fraud to a whole new level. Now, I want to be very clear. People make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. But I think the difference between making a mistake and a character flaw is A, are you knowingly doing something wrong and not caring? Or did you just make a mistake and you shouldn't do that and then you don't do it again? Those are differences, right? Or did you unknowingly do something that ended up being a mistake? Either way, you should try to distance yourself from bad things. But if you knowingly did something to defraud people of billions of dollars, then I think that takes fraud to a whole new level. See, what I alleged in my video yesterday was that I believe Vivek took a failed drug, a completely failed drug, which had been proven to be a failure through at least 4 studies, some say up to 13 different clinical trials, but we'll just say 4 major studies conducted by the manufacturer of the drug, GlaxoSmithKline, to the point where that company gave up on the drug. Vivek then bought the rights to that drug, changed the name of the drug, apparently conducted no published studies or published research into the drug, instead simply renamed the drug, reinterpreted the results of one of the existing GSK studies, not a study they did themselves, but simply rigged the data using a completer analysis, which basically only takes results from patients who had either complete profiles or completed the trial, which totally skews the results to success because people who complete trials are generally the ones the drug works for, right? So complete rigging. But it's not just that, because completer analyses are used to get to phase 3 trials. The nasty part is, that's all he did, is use a completer analysis or rigged analysis to go to IPO with the drug, using his mom to publish results that were, in my opinion, rigged, that ended up propping up the market value of this drug on Wall Street to over $1.8 billion, which made him, his mother, his brother, his friends, his hedge fund investors, everyone very, very wealthy, presumably. They made lots of money. Who knows? Maybe they spent it all or lost it all. But for a drug that 2 years later, unsurprisingly failed, losing 99% of its value. See, Vivek is great at talking smooth, but I think that smooth talking potentially enabled him to orchestrate a multi-billion-dollar fraud, but then hide behind, well, it was all disclosed in SEC documents. So, on one hand, people say, well, what he did wasn't illegal. And my argument isn't whether what he did was technically legal or illegal. My argument is, if somebody has the character to say, let's take a complete failure and promote it, knowingly promote a failure that wiped out billions of dollars for people, then that makes me question your character. He knew that the way to get rich was Wall Street. And I think that's what's effed up, especially for somebody running for president. And look, everybody makes mistakes. I've made mistakes as well. I'll quickly fill you in since you might not know anything about me, and then I want to get to their response because, like I said, their response is really shocking. So look, last year, I screwed up at least a couple times, probably a lot more, and I try my best to be 100% transparent on this channel. I got a reckless driving charge last year, and you know what? I deserved it. I wish I could go back and change it, but I can't. All I can do is do better going forward, and that's exactly what I do. I will never get a reckless driving charge again because I have committed to not making that mistake again. I messed up. But I don't think that makes me a flawed person. It just makes me a person. It makes me a human who made a mistake. And now if I keep repeating that same mistake, that would be bad. Now, I think there's a lot more, obviously, to, the world in terms of people making mistakes, but I think we should be very transparent. I went from working at Jamba Juice to being a top-selling real estate broker. I tried my best to work really hard. I became a licensed lender, a licensed contractor. I became a millionaire investing in real estate before I ever became a YouTuber. I did become a YouTuber. I think I had great success between 2018 and today, and I hope that success continues. Knock on wood, I'm going to keep trying to work really hard. And now I'm a licensed financial advisor, and I'm a manager of an actively managed ETF. I believe I'm the first YouTuber to do so. Now, again, that doesn't come with downsides. And remember, I want to get to Vivek's response here in a moment, but I did also get tied up in unknowingly promoting, what ended up being a scam, which I also feel bad about. People say this, oh, you're the guy who promoted FTX or whatever. I get it. I was one of basically all of the financial YouTubers and outlets, the NFL, referees wearing FTX hats, Taylor Swift being days away from signing a contract with FTX. Some people made a rumor, the attorneys in this case made a rumor that, she knew it was a scam, didn't want to invest. Later comes out, no, she had no idea it was a scam. Nobody knew FTX was a scam. And a lot of people, unfortunately, got hurt. And I feel terrible about that as well because Sam Bankman-Fried ended up being a complete fraud. Today, everybody knows he was a complete fraud, and we hope he gets served justice. I was paid $125,000 for promoting FTX. So far, I'm down about $25,000 in legal fees, though it looks like we've got a settlement in the works, knock on wood, and hopefully that's all over. So in my opinion, this is all over pending a judicial sign-off. But look, those are mistakes that happen. But I didn't knowingly promote FTX knowing it was a fraud. Nobody knew that. The NFL wouldn't put their name on FTX if they knew it was a fraud. And that's the difference between, in my opinion, what I'm concerned about with Vivek and a mistake that happened to me last year. If you unknowingly promote something that is bad, you make a mistake, you promise to do better, either you stop promoting things or you do a lot more due diligence, and you move on. And you do the best to help people make whole what they lost. For example, I committed to take whatever additional money I have left after the whole legal nonsense and work on helping people receive restitution for essentially their damages. Obviously, I can't do that until the cases are over, so I know what is actually left, but then we can create some kind of charity or whatever, as I've promised to do. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So again, though, there's a very big difference here, and I think it's worth comparing to. The difference is simple. If you had no idea that something is a fraud, then you make a mistake, and you can be excused for that. It's still a stain on your reputation. People still comment about it. We know that. But mistakes happen. The difference here is, if Vivek knew his drug was a failure, which obviously he knew, given that all the studies before were a failure, and conducted no new studies and simply remarketed it as a success to get rich on Wall Street, then really, Vivek acted like the Sam Bankman-Fried. And I was more like the investor in Vivek's drug, not knowing that what was being promoted was a scam. That's a really big difference. And for somebody running for president, we ought to know if that is somebody's character, that they are willing to knowingly promote a scam and a fraud. Again, keyword being knowingly. That's the sad part. But the worst part, and I can't believe it gets even worse, is how they responded to me. Look, I want to be clear. Maybe there's more information that's publicly available that I haven't found that could lead us to change the interpretation that I have. I don't profess to have all of the facts. I'm putting out all of the information that I have, which lead me to draw the conclusion that Vivek knowingly promoted a fraud. And that is a character flaw in my opinion. That is a character flaw. And he's been unapologetic about being a failed biotech entrepreneur regarding the Axovan drug. That concerns me. Okay, so I invited Vivek to clear his name. I invited him to either I'll visit him in person, we could YouTube stream this, we could Twitter Spaces stream this, whatever. I invite Vivek, I still do, to clear his name. Again, like I said, I'll even visit in person, just like I did with Boxable. See, what I do for a living is I study things. The more I study, the more I feel like I understand the world around us, whether it's the Fed or politics or whatever. In 2021, I ran for governor in California. Despite being 29 when I ran, I came in second place in the recall election against the governor. I tried to save California, which is a very broken place politically, so beautiful otherwise. And I was one of the first to make big arguments like, hey, we need more spending on mental health. We need more funding on policing. We should not defund the police. We should be funding the police. We should be focusing on our homeless population and actually solving the root of the problem, the mental health issues that our country faces. But less about me. Let's focus on their response. And I hate to say, their response is pretty scary. So their response is from their deputy communications director. And their response is pretty disgusting. You ready for this? This is the response from a presidential candidate. So here's the thread exposing the multi-billion-dollar fraud. Somebody here writes, Kevin finally figured it out. Stefan, or Steven, some people like to pronounce it differently, says, not really. Exposing Democrat. Meet Kevin. Okay, everybody knows I'm like 5149. Yeah, I'm registered as a Democrat. Like, ooh, big deal. Okay, anyway, being sued for $1 billion. Okay, that's the FTX thing. Paid to pump up FTX before its collapse. FTX thing. So it's so far the same argument. People lost their life savings. And keep in mind, I tried my best to warn people. I'm like, get your money out of FTX for weeks before this place collapsed. The writing was all over towards the end, unfortunately. But anyway, paid to promote a guy charged with 8 federal counts of defrauding customers, laundering money, and violating campaign finance laws. Keep in mind, all of those so far are the same thing. Same company, mega Democrat donor, basically, Sam Bankman-Fried, destroyed. Paid to tell people to invest with Sam Bankman-Fried. And so all of those points right there, so far, all related to FTX. It's like, is that all you got on me? Kevin is a failed Democrat candidate. It's true, I didn't become the governor, but I'm actually really proud of our campaign. Our campaign shared a lot of ideas that are now showing up in California politics, which is really cool because that was one of the best things I could have hoped for, short of winning, was that my ideas would live on. And people would take my ideas for solving homelessness or mental education, ME I called it, mental education, just like PE in schools. Oh well. He's mortified about being sued for this video. No, not really. I have a staff attorney, and if y'all are going to sue me over this, let's go, because the beauty about that is y'all will have to really put all of the history on the table, so bring it on. Or you could not go the whole lawsuit direction, and you could be reasonable, which is, hey, look, here's what we did. This is all you have to do is respond with, here's what we did that was different. Here's why we think what we did was not a fraud. And then let's let people analyze it. Let people make the decision. It's ridiculous. Looks like someone beat him to the punch, already suing him for $1 billion. So that is the same thing as the FTX thing. So it's like you're saying the same things over and over again here. And that's just marketing a lawsuit. Like, nobody actually expects to be sued for $1 billion. Like, this is how you market a lawsuit. This is how you get news. This is how you get people talking about it. But I think their response, in my opinion, is kind of like Tucker Carlson going up to Joe Biden and saying, hey, who's really in control of the White House, Biden? And then Biden responding with, well, who's really in control of your podcast, Tucker? You got fired from your last job. You know, these are things known as ad hominem fallacies. It's basically bad logic. And you would expect better from somebody's campaign who says they went to Harvard and Yale, which I don't dispute that they did, but I mean, like, come on, expect better. You might not be familiar with logic. I think we're all familiar with logic, but I mean, like, studied logic. So an ad hominem attack, let's analyze this. So this is how an argument is structured. An argument is usually structured in a simple way. You start with a claim, and the claim is you knowingly marketed a fraud drug. That's the claim Kevin is making. My evidence is that previous failures via 4 clinical trials, and you only had 6 months to launch, and the fact that you didn't change anything or publish any other research, to me indicates evidence that you knowingly marketed a fraud drug you knew was going to fail, and you did that to make billions of dollars. And therefore, I make the conclusion, signified by these 3 dots, that you may be unfit for office because that may be part of your character. It's not just making a mistake, it's your character could be flawed. That's really scary, right? Not because you're going to launch another fraud biodrug, although you could argue that Riovant that makes 20 $8 million in a year and burns over $1.1 billion could be a fraud of, for investors. But yeah, I guess that's a topic for a different video. But anyway, the correct way to respond to this is usually claim, no, Vivek is not a fraud. Here's the evidence. The evidence is we did more research and we changed this or that or whatever, and we just made an entrepreneurial attempt, and therefore, while we failed, we are not a fraud because we just legitimately tried. That's the correct response model. That's such an easy way to bury this. But their response is, claim, we are not a fraud, you're a fraud. The evidence, you promoted FTX. Their conclusion, we are not a fraud because the person saying it promoted FTX unknowingly. Okay, that is a fallacy. This is called, it's an argument, but it's called bad argumentation. Bad argumentation is when you don't actually address what the argument is. So if my argument is, you're a fraud, and your argument is, no, you're a fraud, then what you've done is you've conducted an ad hominem fallacy. This is a way of saying, rather than addressing the original problem, you are simply saying attacks of the person speaking these things about you. And you're spending not a lick of time responding to the actual claims being made. That's actually worse. So take a look at some of these responses here on Twitter to the person. You guys got exposed. Your response is childish. How about responding to the comment about Vivek instead of attacking Kevin's character? He's not the one running for office. I liked Vivek at Patrick Bet-David's, but it makes sense now why he wouldn't respond to whom he hired. Here somebody writes, classic ad hominem against Meet Kevin. Easier to attack the messenger than answer the allegations delivered. But this attack leaves suspicions that there are not good responses to the allegations. Easier to attack than find legitimate responses. Sounds angrily defensive and deflective. Interesting comms strategy from a comms strategist. Vivek should respond about this elaborate pump and dump scheme he did. The SEC Gov would love to hear about it all. 3 out of 4 of your bullet points are literally the same. Dope ad hominem argument, bro. Answer the allegations directly. And remember, a non-answer, like the one you gave, is an answer. You got exposed as being owned by Big Pharma. Anyway, okay, so this is wild. I was not expecting this kind of response. I was legitimately thinking, hey, look, if I were the Vivek team, I think the way to do it is if this is the one thing people are mad about, sure, maybe there are other things, let's go all the way back and let's go ahead and grab the files of 2015. It wasn't that long ago. Show us all the work you did in the 6 months leading up to the work of your job. And you know what? Maybe there's something you just haven't told the world. Like, theoretically, you could even make something up, at least give some people a reason to believe you're not a fraud. But this response doesn't even give people that potential hope, and it's even more concerning. So again, we don't know with certainty. We're just saying, look, this is what we can see publicly. It smells like a fraud. Vivek, would you care to tell us why we are wrong? And then we can address that and we can move on. That's all we're looking for, man. But attacking me for mistakes, one that I screwed up on, and another that I unknowingly was involved in a scam, which I feel horrible about still, the FTX disaster, is not a way to defend yourself. I don't know, kind of scary. Anyway, if you like the kind of breakdowns that I do, consider subscribing to the channel, share the video, check out the programs on Building Your Wealth link down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Now, I want you to know this, when it comes to AI, time is what's going to make you money. And if you can prove that value to an employer, you'll always be able to be employed. So this is another way of making sure that you don't get replaced by artificial intelligence. If you can master AI by starting on the ground floor, let's go.